Hari Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto thee, unto us, and to all your beloved children everywhere. Well, namaste and welcome everyone to our Saturday class, our Saturday afternoon class on the book Divine Grace by Swami Ranganathananda. Our reader is Jeff Sawich, and unless there is some comment, concern, or question left over from our previous sessions about this or any other aspect of spiritual life, is there any such concern or comment or question? All right then, Jeff, please read on.
All right. Last time we got about 2/3 of the way through section 12. So shall I pick up at that point?
Please do, please.
So that's the middle of page 18. Defining Upashanam, meditation or worship, Sri Ramanuja says, meditation is a sitting near in the form of a constant and long remembrance of the subject of meditation, in a uniform flow according to the teaching of the science of spirituality, like an unbroken stream of oil poured from one vessel to another. And the subject worthy of such meditation is God alone, as defined in the following verse of the Upanishad and his divine incarnations.
Jeff, would you read a little more slowly and a little more loudly, please?
Okay, sure.
I'm having trouble discerning some of the words you're saying.
Okay. I'll start at the top again then. Defining Upashanam, meditation or worship, Sri Ramanuja says, meditation is a sitting near in the form of a constant and long remembrance of the subject of meditation, in a uniform flow according to the teaching of the science of spirituality, like an unbroken stream of oil poured from one vessel to another. And the subject worthy of such meditation is God alone, as defined in the following verse of the Upanishad and his divine incarnations. This is from the Svetasvatara Upanishad. He who at the beginning of creation projected Brahma, the creator, the primal universal consciousness, and who delivered unto him the Vedas, seeking liberation, I go for refuge unto that effulgent one, whose light turns the understanding towards the infinite, or Atman. So that concludes that section.
Okay. Any comments or concerns or questions from anyone about what was just read?
I love that.
Yes.
Sitting near. Meditation is sitting near.
Yes.
Because any person at any time of any spiritual faith or even none can have that experience.
Yes.
I just love it when it's boiled down and it's right there, is sitting near to the divine.
That's the meaning of upasana as it becomes Upanishad, sitting near the teacher.
Something Swami Daya, Dhyana Yogananda said when he was here that struck me was that, he didn't say that it was a single thought, but he described it as revolving around, the Ishtar, or whatever the object of meditation is, which I understood that a lot. And, in prior, in the past, maybe a little too hung up on trying to make it a singular thought, whereas the revolving around it just seems to come natural.
Yes, it is. It is a natural. You're absolutely right. It is natural. It's after only a long period and becoming established in samadhi that it becomes fixed. But then the minute you're no longer singing that highest note, it begins to revolve again.
I like that example of an unbroken stream of oil poured from one vessel to another. That
Yes,
helps me so much to get out of the tendency of the mind to flit from one image or idea to another.
yes.
And that idea of pouring oil just helps me a lot.
There's another image that you may find interesting and useful, and that is a candle flame burning in a windless place so that it does not flicker. It is, you can concentrate on the heart of that flame or the tip of that flame, and it's a very useful form of non uh, of meditating without the divine component, just like the oil being poured from one vessel to another need not have any divine component. Very useful, very old. That's why the one is mentioned in the Svetasvatara Upanishad. Anything else from anyone? Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Jeff. All right, please read on, dear.
All right, section 13, the passage from self-reliance to self-surrender. He starts off with two different quotations. Take refuge in me, renouncing all your dharmas, and come unto me, all ye who labor and are heavy laden. But if renunciation of all dharmas is the final consummation, there is need for that earlier part of the fulfilling of all dharmas, that earlier part of the labor, of the evolutionary struggle. This is essential if one is to be this is essential if one is to be able to enjoy and benefit from that lofty relaxation of self-surrender. So work hard, perform all duties, develop yourself, then come and surrender to the highest. Do a whole day's honest work, then sit and meditate, then resign oneself to God. Otherwise, that meditation has no meaning or value. Meditation at the end of a lazy day has no meaning. But that, I better get on the stick. Meditation at the end of a lazy day has no meaning, but at the end of a day, of an active day, filled with good deeds, has meaning and is rewarding. As I often point out, a retreat or a holiday is meaningful and beneficial only after a whole month's or a whole year's honest and productive labor. But to the unemployed, a holiday or a retreat has no meaning. Therefore, men and women who have exercised their own powers and possibilities in the service of man, and who, like a chick, that their erstwhile protective shell of individuality is choking them, is preventing them from their fullest unfoldment, to them comes this transcendental urge and vision of pure religion, namely complete self-transcendence in self-surrender, the flowering of manliness into full saintliness. But the very idea of the transcendental suggests something at its base. What is that base? That is what Sri Krishna calls manliness, which involves the growth of man into the two dimensions of Alpa Atma, or raw ego-centered individuality, and Maha Atma, or ripe ego expanded and ethically refined personality. Okay, Vyaktiva, am I saying that right? And
Spell it, please.
Vyaktiva.
Say it again.
Vyaktitva.
Yakitva,
Okay.
that's as close as I'll get to it.
Vyaktit-
And Vikasita, Vyaktiva, as we express it in Sanskrit. The first involves achievement of individual identity and freedom, and the second involves achievement of freedom rising to the level of social and human responsibility. When one surrenders everything to God, one becomes a saint. A saint is one in whose heart God has manifested and who is God-filled. Properly understood, that is the most meaningful, lofty, and beautiful consummation of human life. Some of the greatest saints have surrendered their everything and themselves also to God. I, yet not I, but the Christ that liveth in me, said St. Paul. So also great God-filled devotees in India always experience this attitude of akinchana bhava, self-effacement, of tadyata, as belonging to him, as the Narada Bhakti Sutras express it.
Narada.
That is surrender. But what a wonderful surrender it is. The surrender of strength, the surrender of fullness, the surrender of true victory. That is the greatest music in the concert of spiritual life, and it breathes energy and dynamism and bears the heroic touch. Whoever does it is a hero, a dhira, as the Sanskrit language expresses it. If to gain life we need strength to renounce, let me start that sentence again. If to gain life we need strength, to renounce life we need greater strength. If to earn wealth we need strength, to renounce wealth we need greater strength. That is why divine grace and self-surrender and resignation to God in their true forms appear in spiritual life only when man has gained strength of character. This is not bahubalam, or muscular strength, buddhibalam, intellectual strength, or any other strength of worldly will and purpose. But it is the subtlest form of strength, known as yoga balam, strength spiritual, which reveals itself in men and women in the course of their spiritual growth, and irrespective of a level of society from which they come and their economic status. It is only when one cultivates that strength that he or she will experience the value of true freedom, the freedom of the spirit, and the true relaxation arising from emptying of self and filling in with God, resulting in spontaneity and naturalness as of a child.
Okay, hold on just a moment.
So that concludes the section. So this is
Isn't it true of each of us that as we have pursued this, we have felt this greater freedom? We have felt this greater transcendence of worldly concerns. It doesn't mean that they're not there. It doesn't mean that we don't need strength to deal with them. But we deal with them from yoga strength, not from muscular strength, but from the strength of a growing union with that which is our true original nature. And so take great solace in this. When Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." This is the rest that he meant. This rest of yoga, bala, yoga strength. Because you are united if you are a follower of Christ and actually follow his instructions. You become united with him. You become one of the branches of which he says, "I am the vine, ye are the branches." And so this is all very encouraging for us, and something that we can celebrate, rejoice in, that this is what becomes of us. Any comments or concerns or questions from anyone?
This is Bhaskar. I just have a overall observation. I feel that when we read multiple paragraphs in one sweep and then stop at the end of that section and then try to reflect on all the paragraphs, somehow I feel that I'm not grasping each of the paragraphs. Perhaps, this is just a suggestion, perhaps we read each paragraph a little slower and we try to understand in a group what is the takeaway from each paragraph rather than sweeping through all these paragraphs, because all of them are good concepts, but I'm not absorbing any of them.
Very well. As the group, if the group agrees with you, then that's how we'll proceed. We can go paragraph by paragraph. Anything that anyone wants to have reviewed, reread, in view of what was just suggested.
I just want to comment that, this is a very dense book. So yes, there's a lot in each paragraph, but sometimes it's not as dense. I mean, I think if we stop at every paragraph, it's going to backfire and be kind of the opposite of reading too much before we stop. I don't know. We can leave it up to the reader or we can just, if someone wants to stop, just to say, stop. Can we stop at the end of this? I don't know. That's just my comment.
Well, how about if the reader just says at the end of each paragraph, end of paragraph, pause, and if no one says anything, then I just keep reading.
That sounds like a very good suggestion, Jim.
I would just
And
add
it
to
accommodates what Bhaskar wants.
I would add to that we stop at the end of the paragraph, and brother, if you have some takeaway for the entire group, you would say it, or if somebody else would have, we would say it, otherwise we'd move on. I've gone through a couple of these reading sessions with a number of other groups, and I like what Cindy said. There is quite a bit to unpack in each paragraph, but not only that, there is cross references between one paragraph and another. And if you just move so fast, at least I am finding it, this is probably one of the fill in the blanks, divine grace, with whether we are doing Patanjali or Gita, your yoga, this is fill in the blanks. And if we miss this reading and we miss this takeaway, we're going to miss in all the other scriptures that we're doing. So that's my personal takeaway. I really like us to stop and slow down a little bit. But if the group wants to move faster, that's fine. I'll listen.
Very well said, dear. Very well said. Thank you. So if there's no more commentary, then Jeff will go ahead on the basis that he just said. Stopping at the end of each paragraph and just waiting. And if there's anything for me to say, I'll say it. If there's anything that anyone else wants to say, then they'll have the opportunity also. And if I don't say anything, that doesn't mean there's nothing for you to say. All right, Jeff, please read on.
All right, and let's hope that the reader can be trained to this new way of doing things. So we resume with section 14, True Self-Surrender, 2 Outstanding Examples. That is why when weak people say, I resign myself to God, I am nothing, I am nobody, the words do not ring true.
Me lunch.
Someone just came in bringing me lunch. Thank you very much, dear.
Okay, I'll start
Okay,
again.
would you begin again, please?
Yes. Section 14, True Self-Surrender, 2 Outstanding Examples. That is why when weak people say, I resign myself to God, I am nothing, I am nobody, the words do not ring true. The presence of the undisciplined, unrefined ego is palpable behind their words and demeanor. Their humility is a fake. We have plenty of such fake humility in India masquerading as piety. There is no genuineness in that surrender. But when a devotee like Hanuman of the Ramayana says, I have surrendered everything to Rama, I have installed him in my heart, I am just his servant, the words ring true because he was strong, fearless, highly intelligent, and efficient. I'm not going to attempt that Sanskrit. The greatest among the intelligent, says the line in Sanskrit about him in India's Ramanama hymns. End of paragraph.
Ramayana. Ramayana hymns.
Yes, but this last reference was Ramanama.
Ramanama, okay. Oh yes, the hymns that are in the Ramayana that sing the name of Rama.
That what we call Ram Nam? Is it the same
Yeah,
thing?
yep, exactly. So here we have the idea that there's no sense trying to surrender in false piety. We have to rise to this heroic status where we really have something to renounce and say that I am now nothing more than the servant of the divine. This is one example. We're about to read a second example, which is equally powerful, but very different. Anything else from anyone?
This is the same sense we read, I think, previously, when Vivekananda says, what is there in you to, surrender? I think
Yes.
I forgot which section it was. That was
It
exactly the
was
same
a
sense.
ways back, yeah.
What have you to renounce, right?
Yeah, what is there for you to renounce? Do you have any strength? Do you have any? He gives the whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. You have neither courage nor wealth,
Yes.
achievement. What have you to renounce? What use would your renunciation be? Same idea exactly, yes.
And this is the same thing even in Bhagavad Gita. When Krishna says, after all these things, you have to fight. Exactly the same sentiment he is expressing.
Yes, exactly.
Which is the same thing in the last section, rather 13, where you're saying, if you're just going to meditate at the end of the night, that's not
Yes.
good meditation unless you have actually struggled throughout the day. So that means you're doing both the things where this whole book started, which is Purushakara, which is your own effort, versus Kripa, which is the surrendering to God for meditation. So you try to achieve both those threads in the same day.
Yes.
But it also though seems to me like the day is a metaphor for your life as well.
Yeah.
You know, because you know when I think back about it, and you know when we got on the path, and you think about how tired you were in of the world, in the world, how sick and suffering, and you know when it was, and basically you know you lay that down, you surrender, you know, that will that brought you to that point in the totality of your life. So you know I don't know, a day, a life, it seems the same to me.
Very well. That's how it seems to you. I'm not sure that's the intent of the text we just read, but if that's how it seems to you, then by all means, hold to that with both hands. And there is those beautiful lines in the Beatles song, "A Day in the Life." But we needn't recite those. So anything else from anyone before we move on to the next paragraph, the next example? Okay, please read on, dear.
In our own time, after a brilliant life of great achievement in East and West, condensed in a brief but intense 10 years of his brief life, a Swami Vivekananda could say, "I surrender everything to Sri Ramakrishna." In fact, in his lectures in America and India, there are wonderful passages expressing this genuine Hanuman type of self-surrender. Towards the end of his famous Madras lecture on the sages of India, after expounding the life and work of Sri Shankara and Sri Chaitanya of the medieval period, he concludes with the following touching reference to his own guru, Sri Ramakrishna. "Now, my brothers, if you do not see the hand, the finger of Providence, it is because you are blind, born blind indeed. If time comes and another opportunity, I will speak to you more fully about him. Only let me say that if I have told you of one word of truth, it was his and his alone. And if I have told you many things which were not true, which were not correct, which were not beneficial to the human race, they were all mine, and on me is the responsibility." That concludes the quote and the paragraph and the section.
Well, here we see Vivekananda's self-surrender, self-effacement, and humility. If anything I have said is true and beneficial, it is of my guru. If I've said anything or told you anything that was anything less than that, it's on me. And he wrote this very touchingly in letters right toward the end of his life. He was very clear about this exact same thought. You can find these both in that lecture that was referenced and in his letters to his brother disciples and also to Josephine MacLeod and the Hale sisters and so on. So anything else from anyone about Vivekananda's achievements and or his self-surrender?
Can surrender actually come through self-effort, or is it only through grace that it happens?
It's both. It's as Bhaskar pointed out earlier, it's Purushakara and Kripa. So we develop the desire for self-surrender through our Purushakara. We begin to recognize the desirability and auspiciousness of it. The ability to actually follow through and do it and actually live it. From here, it seems as this is the grace of Kripa, the grace of the Lord's the touch of the Lord's hand on us, pushing us a little forward because we've asked.
You know, because this comes up a lot in my life in AA, because, you know, people come in, they understand the need to surrender, I think, but the ability to tell someone how to do it is very difficult.
Well, this is why being a great sponsor is one of the great achievements of AA. The great sponsors who can not just explain, but give their heart to the other person in their struggle to surrender and say, I am helpless in the face of alcohol or drugs or whatever it is that has imprisoned them. AA is so noble, so noble. It's just not possible to really express how much good AA has done in the world of human beings. So thanks for bringing it up.
So I'm kind of reflecting on the very short life of Swami Vivekananda, who's only 32 years. And the reflection is that on one thread, he's going through his Purushakara and the amazing things that he actually achieves in his lifetime. But at the same time, he's also trying to achieve Kripa, and he does that in a span of 32 years. So, and similarly, I like to draw on the lifespan of Shankara, which is also 30 years, and he probably did achieve both the threads in a very short time. So maybe the reflection is maybe both of these spiritual leaders were probably well advanced when they were born, and so they had, you know, bits of Purushakara and bits of Kripa to achieve, and they probably did that in a small span of life.
Well,
So that's what I'm reflecting on.
Sri Ramakrishna said they were Ishvara Koti, ever free souls, that they had never been bound. They had been born into lives of bondage because that's what it means to be a human being, but they were never really imprisoned by them. That they were always able, through the grace of their relationship with the divine. This is Ishvara Koti, means one who comes with the divine one, with the incarnation. So yes, you're very right about Swami Vivekananda and Swami and Adi Shankaracharya, both, according to Sri Ramakrishna, both of them were ever free souls.
So they didn't have any sanchit karmas to work out in this short life.
Exactly.
Okay, because there's this competing thought in me, and this might go to the other text that we covered, which is the Yoga Aphorisms of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, which I think in Sutra number 18 and 19 talks about two different types of yogis. One is Bhava Pratyaya and one is Upaya Pratyaya. Bhava Pratyaya is supposedly born with all these gifts and have to only work a little bit to get to Kaivalya. So I was kind of confusing that Vivekananda and Shankara are Bhava Pratyaya, but you're telling me that they didn't even have any sanchit karmas to work with. They were already free.
Well, they each had something to work out, both of them. If you remember, Vivekananda struggled with doubt and was really quite, it wasn't until after Sri Ramakrishna left the body, he was still struggling with doubt. And Adi Shankaracharya, he had to It's very difficult because the stories about Shankaracharya are conflicting, but he had to go to his mother and say, "Mother, let me become a monastic." And she only agreed because he promised to come to her at the end of her life. But he said, "Let me become a monastic so that I can truly surrender all of this." And then it was in the last 16 years of his life. As you pointed out, he lived only 32 years. Vivekananda lived 39 years, but Vivekananda, so Adi Shankaracharya, lived only 13 years. I was 32 years, 16 and then another 16 after his mother had given him permission. So these are the stories that we hear about Vivekananda, and any of you who there's just a wonderful little book called A Short Life of Vivekananda that you can purchase and read that tells you very clearly about how much he struggled with doubt. He had been trained in the Western rationalistic tradition, and when he first encountered Sri Ramakrishna, he mocked him. He said, "Oh, these are just, you're a madman, and these are just hallucinations, all these things that you're telling us about."
Actually, all the way until he was on his deathbed, remember? And he was saying, unless Sri Ramakrishna tells me outright that he is the Ishta or an avatar, then I don't know.
Exactly. Right. And even after the master's departure from the body, there are conversations reported in the gospel between M and Vivekananda, and he's still struggling with doubt.
Which I wish I could remember that more, because we always want to compare ourselves and our insides to their outsides, and sometimes we forget that they struggled with these same things, so we shouldn't beat ourselves up for struggling with them.
Oh, certainly not. There's no way not to struggle with them. The mind is very old and full of very deeply committed habits about how to cope with being embodied. So we're going to deal with those things if we're on this spiritual path. Which, of course, all of us can celebrate very greatly, that we are indeed on this spiritual path and pursuing it together, studying the art of spirituality together. Anything else before Jeff reads on?
The only thing I can think of, especially with the self-surrender, to me, what Sri Dharananda says, divinize every action, whatever you do, and after you divinizing it, say, this is all your action. I am just only a servant. I am doing this. At every action, at everything, we just have to remember that sentence and say it in your own mind.
So what do you mean, what do you understand, Balakrishna,
Yes.
by his saying, divinize every action? What does that, how does,
Okay.
what does that
Divinize
mean?
any action, to me, it means, okay, this is your will. I am doing your work.
This is, yes, this is what he means, all right.
Yes.
He starts by saying, we begin our lives, we begin our self-awareness by saying, I am. Naturally, that's what we say, I am. Of course, that's self-evident. But after a time, we begin to see, by a little opening, some epiphany, some grace, we see or there's something bigger than me. There's something bigger than me. I didn't create this universe. I didn't create this life. So one begins to see I and thou. I and thou. And the thou, over time, as we focus on it through our spiritual practice, we see that it is the thou that has created everything, including ourselves. And so it becomes thou art, therefore I am. And finally, we get to that point that was given to us as Hanuman saying, I am yours and yours alone. I am your servant. And so finally it becomes only thou art. And whatever happens is a result of thou art being there. So this is what Swami Sridharananda means when he says to divinize our lives, to go from I am to thou art. And it's a seamless garment, as Christ pointed out, that we inhabit. But it's not a simple thing to do in practice. We have to work at it. We have this Purushakara of self-effort and spiritual practice. And then having understood the meaning of Purushakara, we then understand the meaning of Kripa or grace. The fact that we're motivated to do this at all is grace. Thank you, Bala.
Well, I actually like that discussion that you guys had on divinize. The one thing I'd like to see if I can unwrap it, when we're saying divinize, and is it pretty much a sentiment of bhakti yoga, as Hanuman says, or is it really, are we saying that when we have actions, we are surrendering the fruits of action, which might mean karma yoga? So there are two different
Both
frames of thought. What is it really?
Both together. Both together. We have the motivation to offer everything sacramentally because of our devotion. As Swami Daya Yogananda said, devotion equals discipline. Devotion is discipline. So we won't have the discipline to offer our actions, to surrender in that way that you just mentioned, unless we have that bhakti, that devotion. Does that sum it up?
Yep. Thank you.
Good.
The story, I believe it's in, or Sri Ramakrishna was talking about the woman that's smashing, the rice, and if you stick your hand in there at the wrong time, it's going to end badly for you. But yet, even though she's doing other things, she's nursing the baby and talking to a customer, but she's only using a small part of her mind, and the rest of it is on what she's doing. And I don't know if it was Swami Sarvadevananda or if I was reading it out of the Gospel of the Holy Mother, but it's kind of talking about keeping your mind on the highest or in God while you're doing things, because if you don't, it's kind of like you have this slave mentality where you feel like it's drudgery and you're it's pulling you into a lower reality, whereas keeping your mind on a higher reality is literally pulling you into a higher reality, and that it's kind of paying attention to where your mind's at while you're doing things, and trying to appropriate less and less of it to the world and more to God, which I know that's hard to do and easy, not even that easy to say, but you know, it's kind of like the more we contemplate it and think about it, observe it, witness it, the more it comes to fruition.
The words that you said, Bhagavandas, paying attention. This is where the rubber really meets the road. It is in the control of our attention. Our attention is so easily distracted by the mind because of its ancient ways of knowing and coping. So we have to pull our attention away from that and say, no, there is a more productive, more auspicious way of being than simply being in the world. So those words that you said, paying attention, yes, paying attention to what? And so, you know, then we pay attention to that which is auspicious, and as you said, pulls us into a higher reality. We don't know that higher reality until we actually experience it. We can say these words over and over and over and over about higher reality. And until we actually control our attention well enough to manifest that higher reality, we have no idea what we're talking about. It's attractive to us, well and good, and that in itself is grace.
I have a comment about grace.
Yes,
It's pretty natural, I think, when you're on this path, especially in the early stages, to say to yourself, when am I going to experience some grace? And so, Brother Shankara, I love what you said a few minutes ago, that if you are attracted to the spiritual path, that is grace right there. And
yes,
and
exactly.
I love that thought. Thank you.
And it spontaneously arises when and exactly when it should. According to Sri Ramakrishna, everything happens exactly at the right time. So trust it, go with it, be with it to the very best of your ability. And as you do, you'll find it unfolds. This is the word that has been used. It unfolds for us. And as it unfolds, as you know, when you unfold something, it gets bigger in every direction. If you unfold a map, you unfold it once, it gets bigger this way. Then you unfold it this way. Then you unfold it this way. Pretty soon, it's 3 by 3. Well, this is exactly what happens in spiritual life. And there's no end to it, that unfoldment. As Swami Brahmananda said, light, more light, is there no end to it? No, there is no end to it. We are infinite beings in an infinite universe, which is apparently manifesting itself in order to manifest itself. As Swami Sarvapriyananda was answered when he asked, why does Brahman do this? And he said, well, the answer is very American, because it can. And there is no other answer. So we are unfolding. We are on this path because we can be. And what a treasure. What a splendid act of grace that has brought us onto this path, and for that matter, brought us together on this Saturday afternoon.
Have you ever heard of the book, I believe it's called The Lamp of the Path? it's a Buddhist book, but basically, if you think about it and you're walking down the path and it's dark and you're holding the lamp only illuminates just a few steps ahead of you.
Mhm.
And, and the saying, a moral life is the beginning of spiritual life. And, the way I understand it, that's the beginning of the purification process. And the more, like the Bible says, blessed is he who is pure at heart, for, he shall see the Lord. The higher the level of purification, the more of the Ishta we can see. And we don't realize the possibilities. I can't realize the possibilities of the path 10 steps ahead of me because the lamp only shines 1 or 2 steps ahead of me. But when I get to that 10 steps ahead, it's shining of possibilities that I couldn't conceive of 10 steps ago. And
So it's always good to live in the expectation that there is something wonderful ahead. We see, as you say, only a little ways ahead. Well, we don't need to see any further ahead, otherwise we could. And the more we unfold, the further ahead we can see, which is why to the yogi of achievement, there is no such thing as future, past, and present. They're all immediate to the yogi. This is what we're told. So, but until such yoga is achieved, then we see what we can see. But that's enough to keep us motivated. And so we continue. Do we not?
Wow, this is the same sentiment. Sri Ramakrishna says, if you take 2 steps, God will take 10 steps towards you.
Yes.
I don't know if you'll get the connection, but it's kind of funny because if you're on the path and you can only see your immediate now, and you realize that now that's all there is, it kind of reminds me of Einstein with like, when is the station going to reach the train? You're not moving. The path under your, it's coming to you. You're not coming to it.
Well said.
I'd like to throw in a plug for a book because I think it's relevant to what we're talking about. I've just begun reading Seeing God, or rather See God with Open Eyes by Swami Chaitananda.
By Swami who?
Chaitananda.
Chaitananda.
Chaitananda, yes.
Yes.
See God with open eyes, yes. Oh, it's a big book.
And it is talking about giving lots of hints on how to meditate on Sri Ramakrishna, and
Oh, yes.
by focusing on his many holy attributes. And it is an eye-opener of a book. He's, as usual, he's bringing in references from lots of different sources and bringing them to bear on his particular aspect that he's focusing on. And there's a lot there. I'm just getting started, but it's wonderful.
What was that, Jeff?
I'm sorry?
What was that book again?
See God with Open Eyes by Swami Chaitananda.
Chaitananda.
I'm saying it wrong. Chaitananda?
Chaitananda.
I need to take a Sanskrit class.
Chaitananda. Well, it's all right. You can get that book from the St. Louis Center, the Vedanta Society of St. Louis. You can also get it from Vedanta.com, or for that matter, you can get a used copy on Amazon. But if you want to benefit the center where Chaitananda has been doing this work for so many years, you will buy it from the Vedanta Society of St. Louis. And they're very, very responsive there. the monks that are responsible for handling the bookshop. Thanks for bringing that up. That is a wonderful book. And, of course, I will always say, Swami Chaitananda gives us all of this wonderful information. But you've been given, if you've taken initiation and you have your instructions from your guru, you have everything you need. The keys to the entire treasure box are in your possession. And you and the guru together turn the key in the treasure box with a click, as Sri Ramakrishna says, and you open the treasure box, and there it is. So it isn't that it isn't worthwhile to read these books, but it is not necessary. You've been given everything you need. And the more you focus on what you've been given, the more rapidly your progress will go forward. This is the promise of the Swamis.
I don't doubt that for a minute, Brother Shankara, but to quote or to paraphrase the Beatles, sometimes I need a little help from my friends.
Oh, there you are. Exactly. As I said, there's no reason not to read these books. And if you feel as if you're getting a little help from your friends, and Swami Chaitananda is emphatically your friend. I have known him since the 1970s when he was an assistant to Swami Prabhupada. And believe you me, he is your friend.
Yes, I was going to say, your guru is your friend.
Well, Chaitananda is not any of our guru, I don't think. But yes, your guru is definitely your friend. A guru is a very specific thing. A guru is one who gives you personal instruction.
And there's a personal connection there too.
Sorry?
I think there's a personal
connection.
Too.
Oh yes. Well, Swami Chaitananda is guru to many. He is actually that personal connection to many. I know people who are his chelas, but if you have been initiated by someone else, stick to what you've been told. Anything else from anyone? What time are we doing for time?
We have got 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
And the next.
Probably we should leave it at that then.
Very well.
As always, what a joy to be with you. What a joy to share this congregation, this gathering together, to study the art of spirituality together. So I'll leave you with our chant. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we go forward, secure in the knowledge that we are in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father, who looks over us lovingly and supports and nourishes us. So may all that be true for each of you. May it be a truth in your heart. And may we all be in bright spirits. May we all be well and in bright spirits. So tomorrow morning, the talk is on the topic, Durga, is she real? Durga, is she real? So If I see you, I'll see you then. Until then, any final from anyone? All right, dears. Until later.